Veo como caen de mi piel trocitos descamados por la ausencia de tu humedad, mi cuerpo deshidratado. Cae la piel rota, dejando al descubierto la otra con más brillo que la que cae, porque algo está alimentando mi piel. En silencio grita, sácame de aquí. Mi piel en silencio grita, oxígeno para respirar, respirar de esta falta de ti, respirar de esta ausencia de mí, respirar para sentir mejor, respirar para aliviar el dolor, respirar, respirar, respirar. Necesitaría la invasión de mi espacio personal, pero no, hoy no lo habrá. No habrá abrazo, no habrá tu abrazo, hoy no lo habrá. El dolor por momentos se hace casi insoportable.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our third panel for Zero Transphobia and coinciding with Trans Awareness Week. We do have interpretation available. Saw the instructions, so you click on the globe and just pick English or Spanish for yourself at the bottom of the screen. For all of our panelists who will be speaking, if you can just speak a little bit slower to allow our interpreters to capture everything that you're saying. That would be great. And a huge thank you to Roberto and to Sarah for their interpretation skills and making sure that we're making this conversation more accessible. But my name is Joaquin Carcaño. I am the Director of Community Organizing for the Latino Commission on AIDS and our Latinos in the South program. I'm based in North Carolina. I work throughout the South. My home is Texas and my heart is still there. But I'm really excited. I'm honored. I'm grateful to have our incredible and brilliant panelists with us today who'll be sharing their wisdom and experiences with us that we can all learn from. So we're going to be talking a little bit about family, about relationships, about safety, and about protection, and about caring for each other. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists. And if y'all would like to introduce yourselves, share a little bit about your background, anything else you'd like to know. And then afterwards, we'll jump into some questions and conversation. So Diego, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And it's amazing to share space with all of you. My name is Diego. I'm from Mexico and I was raised in California, specifically Los Angeles. And I'm currently living in Durham, North Carolina. What I do for work is I work alongside Familia Trans Queer Liberation Movement as part of their social and marketing consultant. And this is Chris, my partner.
Hi, my name's Chris. I'm a PhD student at Duke University, and I study the history of Mexico. And I'm from LA, and specifically I'm from Venice. So I love the beach, and I love all the freedom that that the beach brings us. And yeah, I mean I'm transgender, proud, and I've had a very long gender journey, which I'm excited to share today.
Teresa, would you like to go next?
Sure. Mi nombre es Teresa Carolina. Soy de San Juan,
My
Puerto
name
Rico.
is Teresa Carolina. I'm from Puerto Rico. I'm also a trans femme person. I've been working for an organization, not a specific organization, but a project in Puerto Rico that we're still working on, that works on social justice, and we're gonna make space for trans people in Puerto Rico. And I'm really grateful to be in this space and get to know other people who are struggling and having similar experiences that I'm living. It's all good. I just said that in Spanish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and really excited to have some representation from Puerto Rico. So thank you for joining us. Aubrey, would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, guys. My name is Aubrey Escalera, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm originally from Savannah, Georgia, and I am a trans woman. And I started my journey, when I was very young. And I live in I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, and it's a very conservative state. And growing up, I never really had girls like me. So moving to Atlanta, I met and started working with the community called Community Estrella. I'm so nervous. So I met Estrella, and it was a very refreshing start for me. You know, I was so glad to have met girls like me. And I started doing a lot of work with her, and it's been bringing me a lot of joy. And I'm glad that I have someone like myself, and I wish I had someone like myself growing up.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
And Gabrielle and Adrian, would you like to share about yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Gabriel Sanchez. My partner, Adrian, is going to be joining us shortly. I am from the Rio Grande Valley, where Joaquin is a native of. And I identify as non-binary, trans-feminine, gender fluid. And my partner is a gender non-conforming trans man. We've been together for 3 years, and we just had our baby. He's about to turn a month old on Thursday. So everything's a little chaotic right now, but we're really excited to be here. We are both involved with the South Texas Equality Project, the RGV Trans Closet, which Adrian founded, which provides free clothing and other gender affirming items and emergency assistance to trans folks living in South Texas. We're both part of HENTEX, the Gender Equality Network of Texas, which seeks to advocate for the trans community. Seeks to advocate for the trans community of the Rio Grande Valley. And we are both also, I'm currently working on a documentary called Pansy Pachanga, which chronicles the history of the LGBTQ plus community in South Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. And I'm currently also, I curate an Instagram and an annual exhibit that highlights this history as well.
Oh, and thank you especially for joining us during such a chaotic time. There's the little one, and I think having y'all here with us is so special to really think about, you know, what kind of families we're creating, like the legacies we're leaving. And it's really special to make time to have that conversation with us. So to sort of kick off our conversation, I did want to talk about family. You know, there's, you know, we hear about chosen family a lot, you know, the families that we choose, the families that we create, the families that we're bringing into this world. So I wanted to know about, you know, these family movements or the families we're creating, you know, especially in the face of transphobia, of criminalization, of housing insecurity. And so to start off, can you share a little bit about the families that you are a part of, you know, or that you're building, and the impact that has had on you to build these sort of trans families for yourself? Who'd like to start?
I mean, I guess I can start. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that Aubrey began to talk about like how I think trans people and queer people more generally oftentimes look at the world that is around them and are like, where do I fit in? And so I think from early on, we have to create our own families for sure. And I mean, here I'm creating I'm creating my family here. But yeah, what I've noticed from created family is that allies and fellow queer people, as my friends, have made me feel confident in who I am. And so I think that sort of questioning of like, you know, am I a man, a woman, or like a gender non-conforming person, it becomes less like existential. And I get to say, oh, no, actually, I mean, I'm just me. So that's what family means for me.
Should I follow up?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I feel like something that I always say is community is the antidote. And I think since very young, when I couldn't resonate with people, I always turned to the internet, because for me, that was like the first place that I could find community and people that like resembled me. And I have, I'm come from a very close-knit family. I have a brother and a little cousin, my dad and my mom. And I will say like the journey of me coming into my transition and my gender like has been a whole process, and they've, you know, it was really rocky at first. And I still think that they, no matter what, they always did show up for me. And I think that is something, one of the values that I really carry on over is just showing up for family and community. So family to me means community.
Yes, Aubrey.
Family. When you think about family, you know, in the trans community, you know, for the longest time, you know, I felt that, you know, I would never have my own family, you know, because of the barriers that we face. But when you look at it, there's a lot of women, biological women, that can't have kids as well, you know. So I worked for a bail bonding company. I quit my job when I was 25. And I came and I started to live with my homegirl, and she had 2 kids. So, and they were just born. So raising the kids, you know, it's so much fun, you know, when they're 3 months, 6 months, and then they're a year old. And then you're like, oh my God, they're a year old, they're walking now. Next thing you know, they're 3 years old. And it's like cherishing those small moments is everything family. And also, you know, we just have to be able to rely with our allies and, you know, within our sisters, you know, because everybody has their own story. And raising kids is the most funnest part. So being able to raise other kids and be an example, especially a good woman example, is amazing. Especially having 2 dads, that's also a blessing.
Thank you. Gabrielle and Adrian, would you like to share about your own family, especially as new parents? Anything you'd like to share with us?
So I have like my like biological family that like is like pretty good. They've always been really accepting and stuff, even though they're from El Salvador, Nicaragua. They do come from more conservative, religious, Catholic backgrounds, but you know, they just tried not to understand and not ask too many questions. And I think that's like how we have had like the peace with like each other. But once I was able to come out, I told them like, I just need to like move out, and I need to like be able to have my space to be me. And once I did that, and being able to find my community once I was like in my 20s, was just a complete game changer, because then I was able to find my chosen family. And that was like a whole nother level of like support and understanding, and being able to have like people to look up to and guide you through your transition was something that was so important and key to the person I am now. And then being able to meet with Gabrielle and like that, like we met when I was like starting my transition, and like being able to like see each other like through all the moments of like growth, and was just like so key and pivotal to like my journey and my life. So family just means, you know, to me, biological, not biological, has been so important to me. And now like being able to have like our baby, and like the people that have been more supportive and more like excited for him and like us has been our chosen family, I feel. So it's incredible because it just feels like our baby's like part of our community also, like our community baby almost. So we just have like constant support from our chosen our friends and like our chosen hermanas and trans siblings, right? They've been our number one support in this whole parenting journey, right?
I think I just want to add that like we are trying to be as intentional as possible. I think we both benefited a lot over the past, sorry, I'm trying to speak slowly and that's like not me, but I'm trying my best for the interpretation. We've been really lucky to be surrounded by a lot of amazing chosen family the past few years, and that helped us get through things like the pandemic. And we're trying to be as intentional as possible when it comes to creating our family in terms of our baby and us, like our family unit. I didn't grow up knowing what it was like to be like loved, regardless of who I was, you know, or how I expressed myself, or because I was always very gender nonconforming since I was a child, and I was given the message right away that like my parents' love for me, or my family of origin's love for me, was contingent on my ability to successfully perform masculinity, successfully perform, you know, gender conformity, and that what other people thought and perceived was always more important than me. Arbitrary rules about gender that like make absolutely no sense because they just don't, were more important than me. Everything was, you know, all of those things were much more important than me. And so I want to let our baby know that he's the most important thing, right? His happiness is the most important thing, and he can wear whatever he wants, be whatever he wants, do whatever he wants, and not have his gender be a factor, right? And we've had conversations with our families too, because we both come from Latinx families and Latinx communities, and know that conversations, for example, about color and size can really affect children, and that we're not, like within our bubble, we're not allowing those conversations to happen in regards to our child. So just trying to be as intentional as possible in creating the world that we would have liked to have grown up in, at least where we can for our baby. And one last thing I want to say is, like, while there were so many challenges to being trans parents expecting a baby, and so many different struggles we had to face, which we can talk about later, we haven't had to pay for anything other than like the hospital and stuff like that, right? Like we are so blessed that like we have this community that supported us with like clothing and diapers and wipes and like, and I just feel like as hard as it was, there's also the beauty of having this like large community behind us.
It's beautiful. Thank you for all of that. And I think that's part of this conversation, is the families we're building, right? You know, so Teresa, would you like to share a little bit about the families you're a part of? What has been that like for you to build your own sort of trans family?
Well, I was thinking what comes up first is that these networks, or these families networks that I've been able to build over the years since I started my transition, has been a wonderful thing, because I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. I've grown in ways that I would not have ever thought had never imagined, as a person that has the kind of experience that I've had, and folks that are like their soul, their body, soul, are connected to everything that they are and that they're trying to express. And I think that chosen family is something that has just no equal, because I do have love and acceptance from my blood family, but it's not the same as folks that are living the same thing, and folks that are facing harassment and violence on the streets and are being treated differently because they're part of the world. Folks that don't understand our experience as trans folks, how we have to deal with the world and interact with the world. So I just wanted to say that, being able to count on my family, folks like Karina and other folks that have also been in this space previously. So all the time, like building those networks, building those relationships to be able to call ourselves family, even if we don't share blood, and how it is that we show up for each other. Because you know, everyone, you know, every time that someone brings a plate of food or someone's like, I don't have a place to sleep, you know, we can like call and be like, hey, is there some place I can crash tonight? And there's always an answer. And so it brings that kind of like warmth and that kind of like family kindness and affection. And a lot of us like live far away from our families. So we go to our chosen families, even if it's just 1, 2, or 3 of us in any particular community, that's our family.
Beautiful. Thank you all. I mean, that's, you know, the sort of panel title today is about protection of the community, and protection is often found in family, you know, and we get to be creative. We get to decide how we're going to create our own families. We get to break the molds and the harmful, you know, habits that we were taught or inflicted upon us, you know, like you're doing for your children, like you're doing for the people around you, building up these whole safety networks, and that's our family. And that is the form of protection we're pursuing, right? And thinking about that, you know, our communities face a lot of pain, we face a lot of violence, a lot of it because of the laws that exist, you know, laws against migration, against migrants, against trans people, criminalizing trans people and their bodies or their access to healthcare, criminalizing people living with HIV, you know, and people support these laws because they say it's about safety or it's about prevention of things. But often you'll hear these chants and these marches say, we keep us safe, you know, and you said that in this conversation already, we keep us safe. So what does safety mean to you all? So that's my question for it. What does safety mean to you and your family? How do we keep each other safe?
Well, something that came up for me immediately is I am 25 years old, and this is the first time in my life that I live in a place that I can call my own. And I live in a house with Chris here in North Carolina. And my whole life, I grew up in an apartment complex, sharing rooms with my brother, my siblings, my cousins. So like to me, I didn't realize how much it would impact me having a space on my own to fully be myself and fully just like be loved while discovering and growing into my own. So I think one thing that Gabriel mentioned is just like, yeah, being very intentional of the space you're creating and the people that you allow in and the conversations that won't be had because they have been harmful, right? So to me, I think housing is a big one for me. I think people need stable housing and yeah, sustainability to sustain a house or apartment, whatever it is. That's what comes up to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so we know that justice systems don't work for the people that they are supposed to work for. We know that like the healthcare system is totally unjust. And I think I actually have an example of one time that like community came in support of me. Since I've been medically transitioning for some time now, you know, I occasionally have like health issues that come up. And so one day I did have like a sort of like health crisis, but I didn't want to call like an ambulance because ambulance rides are very expensive. And I also was just like, I don't know if, like I've been to the emergency room before and they just don't know what to do with you. So knowing that, I said, well, I don't want to go to the ER to like, I don't know, whatever's going to happen. So I called a friend, and I'm forever grateful for what they did, which is that they called one of their friends who's a nurse, and that nurse came to the house and just like out of like community support and checked me out. And I think, how do we create our own systems of protection, our own communities of protection? It's like that. And, you know, it's Jose. Jose is the one. So a big shout out to Jose. I don't know if Jose is here, but yeah, so I think that's a perfect example. Thank you.
Yo siento que, ¿verdad? En lo personal, como que
So for me, I think that using Diego's example, sorry, Chris's example, something that we've practiced here in Puerto Rico is this question of accompaniment. like to change their names. So going to the judicial systems in the court and talking to police officers or government agencies, it's always just like treated as like folks are misgendered, the way that folks are treated horribly because they don't have the information. And so our reality is a little bit different because trans folks are like old school, as we say here, and like they've given workshops, different organizations are doing like the political education on how to treat trans folks, and even so folks don't do it. So one of the things that we have gotten to protect ourselves is what Chris said, is this idea of accompaniment. Like we go with each other to medical appointments, to government appointments, like all kinds of spaces, to look for work, to go shopping, like just the most simple things, any place where we can encounter violence. So we help each other and we're there for each other. And I think that when it comes to like how it is that we're like trying to negotiate housing and the spaces that we are, what are the networks that we can form in any given space? And that's part of the protection. It's part of the work of protecting ourselves. Like being able to speak freely and not fearfully. Like, you know, and be able to say to each other, look, I don't want to go to this office by myself because I'm afraid of how they might treat me, the way they might treat me by how I present or how I show up. So amongst like through chosen family and folks that we know, there are the like safety networks. That's where we create those spaces where we take care of us.
Gabriel and Adrian, would you like to share about how do we keep each other safe?
Definitely. I feel like, you know, I didn't really feel safe until like we got together because like every single thing that we've gone through, like, I feel like everything that was violent or transphobic that happened to me, you know, it's like, thanks to Gabriel, like we've been able to like fight together and like be by each other's side through everything. So I've had like multiple negative experiences with like the medical system, like constantly being denied. Right when COVID was starting, I had gone to my family doctor that had gone 2 years before I started transitioning. And he saw me and was like, what happened to you? And like, why are you taking these hormones? And I was like, I'm here because I have a cough. Like I have a cough and it's like COVID, like, tell me what I need to do. And he was just like, no, I think you need like a CAT scan, like a brain scan, something must be wrong with you. Where are you getting these hormones? Like he thought that I was just like destroying myself or like doing something harmful towards myself. And I was like, no, this is very like intentional. I'm like seeing a specialist. I have like an endocrinologist and he's just like, what is her name? Like he was just like trying to, I don't know, like just trying to figure me out, but I was there to get treatment. Like he wasn't giving me treatment. He was just denying me. And he was just asking me all these like questions, like, do you have a drastic weight change? And he was just like trying to find what was up with me, right? And I've always had like this terrible fear of doctors because of like, I know the boundaries there, like not the boundaries, but like what do you call the, you know, how we have this obstacle, right? As trans people to get to access healthcare. And I've had like ankle sprains and like, I just like try to avoid going whenever I have like medical issues. And I like, just like y'all's story, I do have a friend that's a nurse. His name is Jamie. And like, he comes over whenever I need anything. So that's how I've been able to get by, right?
You twisted your ankle.
Yeah, when I twisted my ankle. And then recently with our child, we were getting some information whether my insurance was going to cover our birth, well, my birth, right, with the baby. And they told me because I was trans that I wasn't going to be covered. They said that I had to change my gender marker back to female to be able to get like coverage for the birth and for all the prenatal appointments. And I didn't know how to even approach this. So, you know, together we were able to, you know, fight towards this and like keep asking questions and talk to the supervisor and listen in the policy, like it's not gendered, like, why are you denying me? So we were just like for a month, we were just back and forth with my insurance company. And finally they were able to be like, because they were like, no, we're not denying you because you're trans. No, we're not denying you because of your gender. And we're just like, but you are, like, you have it, like, give it to us in writing. So because we were so persistent and we wouldn't give up, they did end up eventually saying, okay, you're covered, but only like in a specific hospital. We're like, okay, but like we had to keep checking back to see whether they're covering my appointments. And then I had an emergency where I was 8 months pregnant, and it was like I was at work, and then Gabriel came to pick me up. And when we got to the hospital, the security guard stopped us. I was like, what are you guys doing here? Like, why are these like two men here? It's like, why are you here? And I was like, I'm pregnant. Like, I need help. Like, let me in. And he was just asking all these questions and just not letting us into the hospital physically. He was like stopping us. And eventually this nurse came out and she was like, what's going on here? And then it just started with like the misgendering and not understanding, and she wouldn't let Gabriel in. And it was just like a big mess. And the entire time they just like misdiagnosed what I had. And then later on was like, no, I gave you the treatment for this. Like the doctor was just not giving me the treatment I needed. And it was like super serious because it's like putting my life and my baby's life in danger, right? I ended up putting a complaint in to the hospital. And, you know, I kept bringing it up every time I had an opportunity to bring it up. And on the day of our delivery, they did end up training the entire staff. They allowed me to bring in my birth plan that you know, it had to be assigned at every room that I was in, about my pronouns, what our preferences were with our language with both of us. And we had like a surprisingly good experience for a very stressful situation, because we didn't have it like any parteras here that were in the Valley, right? In the Valley, there's no trans-friendly parteras. There's no other alternative, just hospitals. So we were just like grateful that eventually, after constantly complaining, right, we got what we needed. But that's just like something so rare for us, you know, here in the Valley. So it just surprised us, and in a good way, right? But out of so many negative experiences that I've had, like it was an anomaly almost, but thank goodness everything turned out okay. So yeah, this like healthcare is just like so important for multiple reasons for everyone that's trans, right? And it's especially in like border towns and like conservative areas where it's just, you know, it's so different when you see in the media like white trans men going through like pregnancies, and like people that are higher income, or in areas that are more progressive, like Washington State, right, where they have more trans-friendly like providers, health providers, and trans-friendly like birth giver, not what do you call it, birth doulas workers. And like birth workers, right? We don't have that in South Texas. So that was like difficult as like people of color in like a very conservative area, right? Especially Texas.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I mean, you know, just as a sort of a testament to all the extra hurdles the community has to go through to get a baseline of care, right? From an ankle to birth, which, like you said, is a really stressful and intense experience. And you had to really, really fight for all of that. And something I found in community, specific for our trans community, is we fight so hard so no one else in our community has to go through it too. And how often do you see that in other communities? You know, we were saying like, this was awful to me, I'm going to protect the rest of my community, right? And I'm so glad that people came through, people supported you, and you know, you have your beautiful child as a witness to that. But Aubrey, yeah, would you like to share about, you know, safety and how we keep each other safe and how that has looked in your life? You're on mute.
Could you hear me a little bit better? I'm sorry. I came to the United States when I was 4 years old. Yo soy de Michoacán. And when I was 10, I met my godmom, and she was a rich white woman, and she owned a bell bonding company. So the older I got, you know, the more I started working within the bell bond business. So then, you know, I started working there, and it's been but 15 years when I quit. And looking back, you know, there was so much of, you know, bias within the court system, within, you know, the court system within the sheriff. And, you know, in the South, we live in a very conservative state. And not only that, we live by a good old boy system to where it's all who you know, who you pay, and this, that, and the third. And it was very hard, you know, seeing that, being in the bail bond business. But that's the way that, you know, cities got buildings and these small towns got funding, you know, for so many things. And protection was one of the most important things, especially now. And me working in the bail bond business, I was never allowed to tell anybody that I was trans. So even though my job funded my medicine, provided everything for me, I was never allowed to actually, you know, be in touch with, you know, the LGBT community. And that was what's so hard for me, because it was either my job or me experiencing life for my own. So when I quit, you know, my job and I moved to Atlanta, it was so you know, it was such a new experience for me. And now, you know, safety is the most important thing that we do face. And, you know, I'm trans. I don't have paperwork. I was raised American, but yet I still face the same trials and tribulations that my sisters came here with, that deal with the language barrier and everything like that. And it's been very difficult, you know, but it's been a very learning experience. And I'm thankful that we have a good community that's willing to support one another and, you know, work with us as our team and get through this. And not only that, we need to be able to have conversations within schools and have officials that are LGBT allies. Not only that, when we have a lot of crimes, you know, we need to have officers that are LGBTQ friendly investigating these, you know, situations. And just taking serious crimes, you know, to heart and having some type of compassion when they deal with these cases. So safety is very important, especially within the housing and trans community.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if we don't have a place to call home where we find safe, you know, it impacts every other part of our life, you know. It's where we sleep at night, you know,
No.
and we're most vulnerable sometimes. So thank you all. Yeah, so I think, you know, we have, this panel is full of incredible people. We have artists, we have models, we have filmmakers. So I'm curious, and we also have some storytellers. So I'm curious about how y'all see art and media playing a role in our trans-led movements, and how can that, you know, give us some insight on how to continue doing this work.
Pues de mi parte, yo siento que el arte, ¿verdad? Y las diferentes bellas artes han vuelto,
there's a lot of different,
como que para poder, ¿verdad?, deleitarnos con las diferentes maneras diversas que hay de hacer interpretaciones, ¿verdad? Como teatro, el drag, ¿verdad? Hasta el mismo performance, que a veces simplemente movimiento, a veces simplemente silencio. Y ya, ¿verdad? Con eso hacemos un statement, y creo que nuestros cuerpos ya son, ¿verdad?, un ente político. Y nuestra existencia es el statement. Entonces,
and our existence is the statement. And I think it's incredible how
our existence is a statement.
A lot of folks that have lived what we have lived, how we look for refuge, and it's that moment where of joy. And I think that definitely I could define like art, healing.
Art is also healing.
In some ways, like healing then takes us to tranquility and peace.
And can bring a lot of calm and healing.
And I consider that in
and
Puerto
I
Rico.
think that's true.
Se utiliza mucho. Y lo hablo, ¿verdad?, a niveles de, ¿verdad?, que en el activismo se usa mucho el arte. Yo, ¿verdad?
And in activism, art is used a lot. And in my artistic life, it's something that I try to do. It's something that I like to perform. And doing things that folks don't expect, whether it's at protests and in other spaces where we're being denied our rights, and where I show up through my art, through my body as an instrument, I will show you that we do exist, why we should exist, and why we're deserving of these things, and why we have a right to access to medical services and to all the things. And so personally, like, I understand that art is very, very important because it helps us to connect with ourselves, and it helps us communicate with the world in another way. Because folks don't understand sometimes when we say it, but you know, if we do the thing, we dance, we show up, we're up in their faces, and then there are other ways to communicate so that we can communicate what we're trying to say. And art can be so diverse. Like art can look like so many different things for trans folks and for the bigger community. And it should be something that's like basic.
And for me, I think a lot of the work that I do is about like documenting and highlighting history that haven't necessarily been chronicled or shared widely. And I think that it's really important I think what Teresa said was all incredible. And I think it's so important for people to not only be represented in art, but to make art, and for our voices to be like at the center of work that's about us. But for me, it's been really important, I think, to counter some of the lack of representation that I grew up with. I think as trans people, we often are told that we're invisible, that we're a brand new phenomenon, that all of a sudden, you know, that a few years ago, everybody decided to be trans, right? But that we don't have a history, that we are, you know, frivolous, or that we're passive, that we're not able to fight for ourselves, that we're weak. And I think those are all messages that I internalized growing up. And so a lot of my work has been dedicated to showing how we've always existed, but also how we've always managed to find ways to survive, to protect each other, to keep each other safe, to create spaces for each other, to exist even when language didn't really, there wasn't really language to describe us. And I think it's really important for younger trans people, but really all trans people, to know that we have a rich history, that we've been a part of the larger LGBT community since it's existed, that we've always found ways to survive and create space and embody courage in a lot of ways. Because as hard as it is to be trans now, if you look at the 1970s and 1980s, the AIDS crisis, there were so many moments in which just being yourself authentically required so much courage. And I think it's important to honor our trans ancestors in that way. And so that's what a lot of my work is dedicated to, but I really want to counter those messages that I grew up with, right? And to let people know that trans people exist and we have so much to be proud of.
Yes, and I echo all of what Teresa and Gabriel just shared. I think art is very important. It inspires a bunch of youth. It makes youth specifically, I think, and others, but youth see what is possible. I think for me, my focus is definitely alongside documentation, as Gabriel mentioned, because whenever I look back at history and our stories, we're never documented in HD, or we're never documented with like, properly, it's always fragments and fragmented bits of history. So I think something that I am very conscious of is to document so that future generations of us can have this archive, if you will. And for me also, it's important for young people, young trans people, to see us happy and to see us thriving. I think that's beautiful. I think that is what inspires me. I think definitely showing that there is happiness and there is a lot of beauty, and we are faced with a bunch of hardship, but I feel that yeah, that's what I would like to show the youth. Bueno, gracias.
Yes, thank you all. Like you said, it's a lot of it is about preserving our history so we can, protect our futures, to really think about, these letting us take up some spotlight, right? The beauty, the joy of our communities, the power of our communities is captured by art and by media. And it's so important to have trans folks creating that, not just be the subject, but creating that. Because then, you know, people then get to realize our power, right? I think that's huge. And we did get a question in the chat about, you know, as a trans person, how can we protect our fellow trans siblings, you know? And so like to pose that question from our chat to y'all.
Yo creo que, verdad, algo que me ha cautivado y me ha hecho...
Something that motivates me.
Quizás que sea, pues, sí, una manera de protegernos.
A way of protecting ourselves. Like someone was saying, it's the connections that we create, it's the communities, and having good communication and honest communication within our networks, and having compassion and love, and but that we're not afraid also to be able to support each other within our communities.
Sea quien sea que necesite, mi DM, mi Facebook, Messenger, Instagram.
And to be able to get in touch with me over Instagram or these different methods to be able to reach out for help. I think it's beautiful to have that we have each other. And
para poder, ¿verdad? Pues, ¿verdad? Para comunicarnos y poder, ¿verdad? Ayudar
to be able to communicate with one another and think of other different ways that we can be protecting one another, I think is really important.
Aubrey, would you like to share, you know, how as trans people can we protect our fellow trans folks?
As trans people, you know, growing up, I wasn't really, you know, being trans, I was raised, you know, it's no one's business what's between your legs unless you're going to be bearing them. But really, when it comes to protecting our trans folks, it's just being able to have a good self-love presence, you know, self-love. And not only that, everybody's journey is different and everybody transitions differently. I've been on hormones for over 10 years. You know, my journey started just like everyone else's. And you just have to be strong and love yourself, you know, love yourself, and it comes from within. And also we have to learn to protect our youth, you know, we have so much of our kids, you know, not even going to school, you know, and that's a big issue that we deal with, you know, and so we have to be able to have schools that are willing to have these conversations, to be able to protect not only our trans sisters and brothers, but our kids and our youth. And that's very important, to have these conversations in public settings.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, trans youth are our future, right? You know, and thinking about that, I know that Chris and Adrian, you're both involved in education, you know, as teachers, as students. So I'm wondering, how can trans youth and educational institutions be places of support and affirmation?
So I formerly taught middle school, and I think I just have a short comment about middle school and how it relates to the conversation we were having about art. I saw so many of my middle school students be so free and accepting because of their consumption of art and social media. And so I think that's a really important avenue to change the minds of our young generation. But here at Duke, a university that is white, privileged, and full of wealthy people, I can tell you I'm definitely like a unique walking spectacle. And I think really representation is so key. And so when I'm in front of the classroom as like a transgender Latinx person who's like anti-establishment, my students have to see that. They have to see me every single day that I'm in charge of that class. And that's cool. And a little story about that is that one day in class, I brought attention to the whiteness of the space, brought attention to how this particular historical narrative that we were discussing was erasing and ignoring a whole population of people. And I think it was kind of shocking for my students in a class that's like 90% white and more. So, but what happened at the end of class is a student came up to me and said, Chris, you're the only TA and or professor that has ever brought critical attention to the whiteness and privilege of this space. And I was like, okay, one, that's awesome, I guess, but at the same time, it's like, that's horrible. That's horrible that there's no critique here. There's no critique. I mean, you walk around. I mean, it's obvious. It's like, it's obvious as the light of day, you know? So I think we need more representation and more critique from within these institutions of power that are mired in horrible histories. So that's my 2 cents on. Thank you for the question.
Hello. So I was a pre-K teacher for my entire transition, basically. And even before, so I got hired, as a teacher, and through being hired, I was able to like get my sweet insurance to like get my HRT. So I was hired, and like I wasn't transitioned yet. And then once I started getting my insurance, like I started transitioning during the summer. And when I came back, they were like, who are you? Like, what's going on? So I had a transition on the job, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm like, this is like, I was working in Ed Chelsea, like, this is the Valley, it's Ed Chelsea. Like, there's like the population of 50 people here. And I just was as honest, as invisible as possible. And, just like y'all were mentioning, like, they had to like be forced to see me every day, forced to see like my beard grow in, and like, my clothes change, and being called like Mr. Melgar, and getting my name and gender marker changed, and having those conversations in like this area, and also like confronting in this area of where machismo is really important to this like Latinx community, right? And talking about this like oppressing misogyny that just like is present in your everyday life here in the Valley, and like in the classroom especially. And I had a lot of parents just warm up to me, just like after I was like super honest with them. They knew what was going on. Like, they didn't have to ask, but there was some parents that asked, of course. And I was like super honest with them, and I guess that they appreciated that. And I did have like LGBT parents that, when they saw me, they were super comfortable with me. They told me about their discrimination, like their experience with just discrimination and enrolling their child in different schools, and just feeling so comfortable knowing that I was going to be their teacher was like, for me, it was just worth that family feeling comfortable having their child in my classroom. So, I just continued just being out and open, and, hoping for the best and not getting fired. Luckily for me, the HR director for, the pre-K program I was with, he is in his, he's in his late 60s. And, when he found out I changed my name and gender marker, he was like, this is the first time I have a teacher, that has been transitioning. And like, I just want to let you know that I spent hours researching like your rights and how to protect you in the workplace. And like, I remember that day, like I got the phone call. He was like, before he even told me all that, he was like cool with me. He called me and was like, I need you to come into my office tomorrow morning. And I was like, Gabriel, come stay the night with me, because I'm going to be like stressing the entire night. Like, I'm going to get fired. This is it. Like, he found out I'm trans. And when I got there, that's when he told me that, like, he's like, don't worry, like, I've been researching like your rights. And if anybody in our workplace like discriminates you, like, come to me, and like, I'll have your back. And I was like, unexpected. And like, I've just been like, I feel like I've had this streak of luckiness, like in my profession of being like a trans teacher, an openly trans teacher. And every single year ever since then, I've had parents coming up to me and being like, I saw you on the news, or I saw you like in this protest. And like, I just want to let you know, like, I have a brother, and like, he's also trans, or he's also like gender nonconforming. And I respect you for being so out and like honest and like courageous. So just having these like interactions with people of like their awareness of trans people in the education system has been like just worth it. like worth every single awkward question, worth every single like coworker coming up to me and asking me about like really personal things that I just have to be like, look, like, no, like I'm not gonna answer that question, or here's where I'm putting my boundary. But everything is just has been worth it. And like seeing families and being seen by families that feel comfortable with me, or being educated by like me being their teacher, their kid's teacher, has been rewarding. Also, I just got hired at a new place, like I'm a third grade teacher now. And that's been like a new thing too, because, you know, it's a new place. I don't know like how the politics were, but when I went into the teacher training, the first couple of months, they had this LGBT awareness training, like competency and like diversity. And I just like automatically felt like, you know, this is where I belong. So it's just been just a lucky streak for me. And, you know, having kids see me and, you know, realizing like, oh, okay, like this is an okay thing to be, like people that are LGBT can have like these professions and like be out and about and like, you know, and especially being like Latinx, that's like a whole other thing. Like, because I have so many students that are like Black and Latinx, and them being able to see me is just like, for them, I know it's important, you know?
Yes, I mean, there's so much power in just people being able to witness you, right, in your full truth, and they can't really, there's not a lot of words to capture that, and just grateful for all the ways y'all show up. So we're about to close, but I always like to end on sort of thinking about the future, so we know where we're trying to get to. So if y'all could say in like one sentence, you know, what is your dream or hope for the future of our community?
Abundancia.
Abundance.
I thought of liberation and being able to go to the grocery store just like casually or anywhere.
I think a world where anybody can be who they are, or question who they are, explore who they are, dress as who they are without having to worry about survival. And then eventually, I want trans people to rule the world. I really do. I think we deserve it. Not rule, but lead.
Either one would be fine.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just hope that gender can be completely redefined. Gender has not always been a binary, you know, as an historian. So let's fix that.
Aubrey? You're on mute.
I would love to have a world where communities can share communities within communities and share cultures within cultures, and us come together as a big happy family within different cultures and expressing art and equality.
Adrian?
I think just like I'm hoping that in the future, like we don't never have to like live in fear of having to like reach out for help. That's what I hope for.
Well, thank you all. So grateful. I mean, it's been such a gift to listen to y'all. We could talk for hours, and I'm sure there's just more and more would come out. But are so grateful for your time, for all you give to us, all the work you do on behalf of our community. I think y'all are a true testament to, you know, the possibilities that we contain, right? There's so many different possibilities to be educators, to be parents, to be abolitionists, to be artists. You know, there's so many. And I truly believe that any hate we receive is because people are envious of our joy, our beauty, our power, and our ability to really, you know, step into our truth. So thank you all. So grateful to our interpreters for sharing this conversation. And hopefully there's more to come from all of us, and we can gather again and you know, have more conversation. But thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Cuídense.
Thank you.
Nos vemos por ahí en las redes sociales, por favor.
Yes.